The traditional work calendar would be increased from 181 days to 183 days for the 2021 calendar school year. I mean, for the school year. Next slide.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent. It's Matt Turkey, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. So our professional learning occurred on September 1st and 2nd. And just to note, this is the first robust professional learning we've had for all teachers since 2014-15 school year. So it's been 6 years since we've had professional learning for all teachers. And what this consisted of was 7 different modules, 3 of which were live and 4 of which were recorded and asynchronous. So I'm going to start off with the live ones. The live ones focused on instructional technology is one. Another focused on universal design for learning and lesson planning so that we could reach all students within all of our classes. And then the third live session was on social and emotional learning mini lessons to ensure that we can meet students' social and emotional learning needs. The asynchronous lessons, sessions, there was one on Google Classroom use and organization. We had 2 on scope and sequence, one in the scope and sequence in math and the other in the scope and sequence in ELA, English Language Arts. And then our final one was on the common district assessments. The way that these were organized is that there would be a session which would be interactive, and then there would be time after that for teachers to collaborate and process around the session and thinking, well, what does that mean for me in my content area and what should I start doing with that, overseen by each principal. Each of these sessions kind of basically end up being braided together. And then if you think about, well, what would a teacher need to know to start distance learning on the right foot? Well, they would need to know how to use Google Classroom and how to organize it properly. They would need to know about how do I use instructional technology and how do I build relationships with students in using that technology? How do I meet the needs of all my students using universal design for learning and the scope and sequence in math and ELA, and then how do I know what my students have learned by the common district assessments? And that's in the way which they all get braided together. And that's it for the professional learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turkey. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Sorry, President Ryan, there's still a couple more slides. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe this is Ms. Ramos.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to unmute here. So this is just basically the cost per AB 1200. We have to disclose what the cost of this, any negotiated agreement is when there is a change in salaries or benefits or any kind of compensation to employees. And in this case, even though it's just one time, we still have to say where is the funding coming from and disclose that it's not ongoing and the impact to the budget, of course. So there's 2 impacts. Originally, this was going to be professional development for online learning. I'm being very general here. And so obviously it met the criteria for use of our mitigation funds. And then, however, because of the change to the calendar, it triggers other changes to other positions also within the bargaining unit that have to be treated differently. And those positions are not necessarily part of the 2-day training. They're just going to be when they provide services to the district, such as substitutes or stipends, and there's a whole category, their rate of pay gets adjusted by the proportionate increase that the other category did. So in this case, it turned out to be like a 1-point-something% for these stipends and these substitute salaries. And so we don't know exactly what the impact's going to be right until the year is over. They have to actually earn those wages through activities. But if we're assuming that all of the positions in that second category, the budgets that are currently set up for them, if we assume that that's exhausted, this is what it will cost in that particular category. So going back up to that first bullet, for the 2 days of the professional development that qualifies under the learning loss mitigation funds, it will be about 2.3 million. We have 3.4 million awarded under this particular category. And why this one? Why are we being so specific? Because our other funds that are going to expire in December, these wages will not necessarily be, it's going to be difficult to try to use those. It'll be far more complicated because they're built into the salary schedule and they're going to be earned throughout the whole year. We just need to wait until the end of the year and then just, do a charge back to this fund. Versus if it would have just been a 2-day payout, then clearly we would have used the other bigger chunk of funds. So that's why these funds don't expire until next year. And so these are the funds we're going to use and not impact our unrestricted general fund. The second category is the stipends that I talked about. And because these are not associated with any kind of learning loss mitigation, we don't know yet, right? Because I haven't earned these. Right now, we have to assume that they will be paid for with unrestricted general fund dollars. And so because we cannot increase expenses and increase our deficit, we need to look within our own funds and find a way to fund these. So the category where we expect that we will not use it completely is our substitute budget line item. We currently have 7 million, and this is assuming that we will use all of our 7 million for the entire year. And we're not sure if we're going to do that or not. So that was the budget that we're going to reduce by the amount that's actually used in this category. I hope that was clear. And this is part of AB 1200. You really have to disclose how you're going to pay for it, what is the budget, and what's the impact of the budget, and really provide evidence that you have funding available for this. So this next slide is just a recap. It's the spreadsheet. If anybody can advance the slide, please. I don't know who's controlling that. Anyway, it's in your packet, and it's basically just the spreadsheet that shows these categories of funds and how they will be used. And that's pretty much it. Is there anything else?
President Ryan, I just board members, I wanted to make sure that you're aware, and I think you're sensing it. We are having some technical difficulties, including the fact that we're having to record the Zoom because we weren't able to make this portion of our open session live, if you will. So we will be uploading the video. I will make sure that we're talking also to legal counsel in terms of any impact and whether we have to come back once we address those technical difficulties. But I do want to make sure that if possible, board members can see the calculation slide if Mr. Flores is hearing, or if we can do it through your screenshot or something, Mr. Bosio. I'm not sure what's happening, but we are having some challenges, technical difficulties. So, we are live now. But I am concerned about, I do want to make sure that our community can see the actual calculation of this. So is there a reason why we're not able to move the slide? There, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And so here's the breakdown. I think this will explain it a little better than how I try to explain it. So the first 3 categories, those are the groups of teachers that were slated to attend the 2-day training, and they're organized by calendar. So those were the calendars that were adjusted to add 2 days to their annual calendar. And so obviously they will get paid over the course of the year. And then the second category are all of the other positions that automatically get triggered. Whatever increases those calendars above get or changes, they happen to the categories that are listed below. And I'm sure Mr. Bosnier can explain that a little clearer than I did, knowing the agreement better. But for us in the fiscal side of the house, we just need to look at the fiscal impact and which positions are going to be impacted, and then go back and pull these out, apply the increase, and then identify the funding. And so that's why you're going to see all the details, because in AB 1200, again, you have to disclose where are you getting the money to pay for this. And is it one time, is it ongoing, and what's the impact to your unrestricted general fund balance. And in this case, there really isn't, other than a change between budgets is what we're doing here. So we're taking from one budget to pay for that second half of this expense.
So for those members of the public that are just tuning in, this is a special board meeting of the Board of Education for Sacramento City Unified School District. We're hearing one item, one agendized item pertaining to the 2 days of professional development that were arrived at in the MOU between Sac City Unified School District and the Sacramento City Teachers Association to ensure that we can calculate and have timely payment for those 2 days of professional development. We're coming together to take action on this expenditure. Superintendent Aguilar, is there anything else on this item before I ask for public comment and then board member questions and comments?
No, that is the end of the discussion from staff, President Ryan. So we'll turn it over back to you for any public comment as well as any questions from our board.
Deputy Superintendent Allen, do we have any public comments on this single agendized item?
President Ryan, there is no public comment on this item.
Okay. So with that, we'll take any board member questions and comments. I did have one very quick question, and that was related to total number of teachers that took advantage of the 2 days of professional development proportionate to the total number of our workforce.
I'm hoping that Mr. Turkey is still available.
Looks like he is on mute. If we can't answer that right now, we can have it come.
We absolutely can. President Ryan, follow up on that because, of course, we will be tracking who attended those days of professional development. Again, I do want to just clarify again for members of our community that in this case, we were excited to be able to have those 2 days of professional learning. It's been a long time since we've had an opportunity to provide and start the year front loading it with some professional development. But we will provide that information to the board because it's a good question and it's an important question.
And Superintendent Aguilar, for members of the public who might want to know why this is the first professional learning that has occurred in many years within Sac City Unified, do you have a quick, 1 minute answer to that?
Well, as you can see here, board members, this is what the cost is for 2 days of professional learning. And we thought that it was critical to the extent possible to prepare for this new way of learning, distance learning, that we do as much as we could so that our students were receiving the highest quality of teaching and learning with our teachers, given that this is a new space of teaching and of learning for our community. But we also wanted to capitalize to the extent possible. You can see that in some cases you cannot use only CARES Act dollars. So it's always been a difficult position to be in because it is a significant investment to make. And I hope that this is the kind of investment that we will be able to make in the future, which is why it's so critical that we stay focused on addressing some of the budget structures that are in place today that make it difficult for us to invest the way that we were able to do this year. So I'm hoping that this isn't, as Mr. Turkey mentioned, something that we won't see until a few years from now. So
Thank you. Do we have other board member comments or questions? If I can just see hands. Board Member Morowski, followed by Board Member Garcia.
Thank you, President Ryan. Just I think a quick question for Ms. Ramos on the funding source. I just wanted to clarify and understand a little better how the payments are actually going out and why we can't use CARES Act funds that expire in December for those payments.
Because of the way they're paid out, those 2 days are built into the salary schedule. So, and they're not paid up front. So let's say they happen September 1 and September 2nd. We're not paying those full 2 days at the end of September when payroll hits. It's being paid out over time in their monthly, salary. So not that we can't, Member Morowski, but it's just we've been wrestling with this because it's a little complicated. If we decided to use the December expiring resource, we would need to calculate the months of September, October, November, of course, because December ends in December 31st, and that doesn't qualify. It's really weird award. Anyway, we would only be able to charge those months to the expiring resource. And not that this is a reason why we shouldn't do it, but the amount of work, just to give you an example, each of our positions can be as many as maybe 20, 30 lines, because they could be, split between sites, or they could be, they're just doing different activities. Our account code structure is just very lengthy. And then you have to add into that all the benefit lines. So we were just trying to find the simplest way to charge back a restricted resource, but not that we couldn't, it just wouldn't be 100%, because the other remaining months, of course, are after the December 30th deadline. I hope that was clear. I know that was.
Yeah, it was clear. I guess I don't understand the accounting structure well enough to know whether it is, an efficient use of time and resources to try to charge back to that funding source that's expiring. But I would ask that we try to do that. I am a little concerned, and I know we're going to have more conversation about this, but I am a little concerned with the volume of that, just the size of that pot of money that is up till now expiring December 31st. And I think we really should be looking to maximize that funding source. So I guess just a technical question. If we approve this now, does it mean that you would still have the flexibility to charge back the other funding source, or are we approving the funding source with the MOU action?
You are approving the funding source with the MOU action, but it doesn't mean that you couldn't revise the budget later on and come back. But also know that what we're going to do then is trade and expense, right? Whatever we were planning to spend by December 30th, we'll look for something that doesn't have to be done before then, and that we can push that one out. I mean, the other way around, I'm sorry. We can advance another expense that we were planning to spend in the spring with this resource and apply it to the December 30th. Our goal is, if that's the concern, and I'm not sure what it is, but I don't want to make any assumptions, but we intend to try to find items that we need or services that we need, so that we don't send back any of those dollars, especially now that we know we have them on hand. We were worried before because we were waiting, but now we have them. So that kind of changes things a little for us. And so, yeah, so you're approving, yes, the funding source today, but doesn't mean that you can't come back with the budget revision.
Okay. Well, I would, I'd be happy to move approval, and just I would ask you to look at whether we can come back and whether it makes more sense to charge it to the December 30th expiring funding source, just because I think, you know, anything we can do to maximize our flexibility, we should. So with that, happy to move it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Morowski. Excellent point. Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. So I had a similar question. So I'm glad to hear a little bit more clarity on the reasons why this particular funding source was identified, but also my concerns that whether it's an internal sort of process or capacity in terms of ensuring that we spend those other dollars first, right? The ones that are going to expire in just a few months. So I'm glad to hear that you're still looking for ways to spend those down and in a way that we don't have to return any dollars. So, so anyway, so that's that comment. And so I did have a question about the remaining balance. So if, let's see, so the total award is 3.4 million, and of that 2.3 is essentially what is being spent here, and the balance being 1.8. What happens to that 1.8? Does it stay within, I guess, a category of professional development, or does it go back to some general fund of some sort?
No, remember, that's a very good question. That's the allocation for one of the buckets of the learning loss mitigation funds. As you may recall, there were like 3 different allocations within the one award. And so this is the one award that has the longer expiration date. It doesn't expire December 30th. So because of the way this $2.3 million is being paid out, we were just looking for a resource that didn't expire so quickly, because these are not going to be fully earned until June, right? That's the last payroll of the year. And so that's what we were trying to do, is to match the expense with an award. So that balance is simply the balance remaining in this particular category of this award. It hasn't been committed yet. As we shared at a previous board meeting, we were talking about, okay, these are all of our COVID relief funds, and this is what we've committed so far, what we've spent so far, and here's our remaining balance. This category, this of award, is one of those unallocated amounts that we were, waiting to see what would happen next year and how we would need to use those funds in the future.
Okay, okay, that's good to hear. And then just one last question: the other stipends, the funding source being in the unrestricted general fund. I know it's not a lot, 120,000, but what kind of professional development did these, I guess, the people in these positions receive that is not eligible to use CARES dollars? So if it's professional development because of COVID, I'm just not sure what you can charge it to the CARES dollars.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to my colleague here, Matt. My understanding is that they did not, or they were not included in the professional development, but let me let someone else answer that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Would somebody repeat the question, please?
So I'm just wondering why the 120,000 is not eligible for CARES dollars. So if they receive professional development, why can't you charge it to the other funding source?
This looks like to me like it's there's the stipends which people would receive anyway. So the stipends which you receive to be an athletic director and so on, and a department chair, those are yearly things, and they're not dependent on COVID.
Okay.
Correct. So those costs weren't associated with the professional development directly. They're just these trigger items for those amounts of stipends that get triggered and increased when we increase the the regular teacher salary schedule. So when we extended the salary, the days that they work in the year, their salaries went up. And then the formula for the stipends and for substitutes is tied to that amount.
So
quite
even though they didn't participate in professional development?
Well, so some of those folks may have very well participated.
But
You know,
some
the
may
high
not
school
have.
athletic directors, the folks who get other stipends and so forth, they may have participated, but they're getting an extra little pay bump just because of the way that we extended the year to capture these professional development days. Does that make sense?
It does now, yeah. So, and I think it goes back to Board Member Ryan's earlier question in terms of the participation from the overall employees. And so I'm sorry, one more question, because I think this is happening under child development as well. Are those triggers, or did they, no, they participated in professional development. That's why the CARES dollars are being used, or the learning loss. Okay. It kind of makes sense. It makes a lot more sense, but it's still an interesting sort of formula or trigger. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Looks like we don't have any other board member. Oh, we have the final board member question from Member Pritchett.
No question, just moving to approve.
So we had a motion by Member Morowski and a second by Member Pritchett.
Thank you.
I believe this is a roll call vote, student preferential vote.
I think Mr. Barron said I can't give a preferential
Okay.
vote on this item.
Thank you, Board Member Shake. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you. Member Vang?
Yes.
Member Ryan?
Yes.
Member Pritchett?
Yes.
Member Morowski?
Yes.
Member Minnick?
Aye.
Member Wu?
Aye.
Member Garcia?
Aye.
With that, the motion carries. Hearing no other items on this agenda, this concludes the special board meeting of the Sacramento City Unified School District's Board of Education. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Well, everyone.
Thank you.